Hello and welcome to another episode of Weather Nerds. I am First Alert Weather Nerd CD Finley here today on episode number 8. That is right. That is now 8 weeks, about 2 months of Weather Nerds now that we have reached. Pretty crazy to think how fast time flies. But in today's episode, we have quite a lot to cover. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it again. Excuse me. Oh man, I should have brought my water in here. I'm getting the best of me. Anyway, before we get into the meat of things today, I do want to just give you all a brief reminder. Of course, we are live here on Facebook. For those of you who are watching the live show, we also have these recorded and posted to the Degrees of Science YouTube channel. So I want to go ahead and show you here. And I got the headset kind of going a little bit loud over here. I'm going to turn that down. Show you here the Degrees of Science YouTube page and where you can find all of not just our Degrees of Science interviews and stuff like that, which all of those are interesting in their own right, but also find our podcast section on the channel. So here's a little screen grab here I took from last week. Again, you can see the Degrees of Science YouTube page here on the YouTube app. You can also do the same thing on the actual website in the website browser. But you can see the different tabs there. You can scroll down and see all of our episodes. You can hit videos and see all the Degrees of Science interviews and a few scattered episodes of Weather Nerds. But if you want them all in one spot, all you have to do is go over to that podcast tab, and then there's a whole playlist of all of our episodes of Weather Nerds, and you can kind of go back in there and see where we've been for the last 8 weeks now that we are on the 8th episode here. And again, you can see there was a screen recording from my phone that I grabbed. But so that's where you can find all the previous episodes of this. Again, for those of you who are joining on Facebook Live, this is the 8th episode of Weather Nerds. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Of course, we have a lot of weather to talk about this week. But before we get to the weather, I actually kind of want to talk a little bit about some more space-type stuff, starting with something that kind of piqued my own curiosity last night as I was heading home from work. So I know sometimes I get this question from viewers and just people that I know in general. Sometimes the moon, if you're ever out right after moonrise or sunset, etc., if the moon is really low on the horizon, sometimes it can become or appear as very, very orange, red, and very giant in the sky. And last night was one of those cases in Central Texas. It was a crystal clear night. Again, we've been dry and warm, and we'll get to that in a little bit with our full forecast. But with how clear and dry it was and how nice it was outside, you could see the moon pretty clearly. And I snapped some of these pictures on my way home from work last night after the 10 o'clock news. And you can see the moon is pretty low on the horizon there. It's a little bit blurry. Forgive that because it's just a phone picture. But you can see it was very low on the horizon, very orange and red. And if we zoom out here, it gives you a better perspective as to how low on the horizon it was and how large it actually kind of appeared to be there in the frame. And there's a reason that it may appear as large to you and as orange to you, and it's the same reason that the sun is red and orange as the sun sets. So here on Weather Nerds, for those of you who are not familiar and joining us on Facebook, we like to do a deep dive on things, not just weather related, but anything science and space, etc. So that's what we're doing here. Again, breaking down why this moon was so orange last night. It's a little bit more common than you might think, but as the moon is rising just above the horizon, it's again the same reason that the sun appears so orange and red at sunset or sunrise. It's something called Rayleigh scattering. For those of you who aren't aware of what that is, essentially, to put it in layman's terms, all of the light that gets scattered in the atmosphere, it gets scattered at all kinds of different angles, and so because of that, different wavelengths of light get left out, get absorbed, etc., etc. That's kind of what gives the sun its reddish appearance at sunrise and sunset. Same thing goes for the moon. When the moon is really low on the horizon like that, it can appear a little bit of an orangish red. Now, that doesn't quite explain why it appears so large in the sky, especially when you're looking at it with the human eye. There's actually a different reason for that. When the moon is so low on the horizon, again, I'll show the picture here that I grabbed from last night. When the moon is so low on the horizon, it's a bit of an illusion whenever you're looking at it from that perspective. Because it's so low, your brain automatically starts comparing it to other objects that are of similar, closeness to the horizon, if that makes sense. So whenever you're looking at the moon, your brain comprehends it as the same size as these other objects that are here on Earth. And so because of that, the moon actually appears larger in the sky than it actually is. And if you do a little bit of math here or there, you can figure out like, oh, once it's, on the horizon and when it's directly above you in the sky, it still is actually the same size. So little fun fact there for you. If you were out late last night wondering why the moon was so orange and so large in the sky, that's the reason why. It's just a little bit of an optical illusion that's kind of playing with your brain there. So interesting to know those kinds of things and how the human mind works and perceives things sometimes. And another cool thing about perceiving things, this was another photo that I took last night. For those of you who may have, some of the newer iPhones and some of the newer Android phones might do this too. There's this thing called night mode, and essentially what it does is it takes the camera lens and opens it up to capture more light on the lens. That way you can capture more things and get a better picture in the dark light or in dark spaces where light may not be as available. And so I was taking this photo last night. For those of you who aren't aware, I'm from China Springs, so obviously I live out in that general area near the Waco Regional Airport. And as I was snapping these pictures on my way home from last night, I was actually right across from the airport, and I got this photo of a airplane taking off there, and you can see how the open lens on night mode kind of distorted the airplane there. So no, that's not aliens. That's just an airplane taking off from the runway right there in the foreground. But thought I'd share that. That was a pretty cool photo. Just another example of how your mind can, and how cameras can kind of distort things and things like that. And so it's always good to have some of that discernment, especially if you're on social media, which that's another thing that we'll get to here momentarily. But keeping in line with the astronomical events here on this 8th episode of Weather Nerds. Unfortunately, this isn't going to be for us here, but many Central Texans are aware we've had our fair share of astronomical events in just the last year or so. Again, about a month ago on March, it was late March, mid to late March, we had that lunar eclipse, which was really cool to see. Obviously, April 2024, we had the total lunar or solar eclipse that was here as well. So we had a solar eclipse and a total lunar eclipse within the span of about a year. And of course, we had multiple instances of northern lights. Well, again, we're not expected to see this, but you can take a look here. This is the forecast for the view line of the aurora, and it looks like the aurora might be visible in some of our northern states in the United States tonight. And of course, tonight being April 16th at the time of this recording, if you're watching this podcast on a separate day on our Degrees of Science YouTube channel. But you can see tonight's forecast. It looks like Canada all the way down into Montana, North Dakota, parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, Great Lakes region. They have a chance to maybe get a view of those aurora northern lights tonight in the aurora. And you can see there that view line actually goes all the way down as far south as Nebraska. So not as far south as, say some of the previous events that we've seen in the last year, especially down into Oklahoma and into Texas. But pretty interesting tidbit there. Some parts of our nation will likely get to see the northern lights tonight. And again, further north, the better chances. Unfortunately for us in Texas, where we are at, that's likely not going to be the case. And that actually kind of wanes with tomorrow's aurora forecast too. You can see it kind of changes a little bit. Some of those northern states are going to be cut off, so Nebraska may not get to see it on that view line, but South Dakota, North Dakota, some of those similar areas might still get to see it tomorrow night on Thursday the 17th as well. So interesting things going on in the world of astronomy and space weather. But that just about does it in terms of those headlines today. One other thing, though, that we are going to be hitting on, especially here in Central Texas, is the actual weather that we are experiencing here on the surface of the Earth. So let's go ahead and take a look here. This is something that I've seen kind of circulate the social media pages from all over the place over the last week, and I figured I'd kind of bring it up here and add a little bit of extra context to what this product of weather model data actually means and what it's actually doing. So for those of you who may, of course, if you're watching live on Facebook, you've probably scrolled Facebook and seen this posted by maybe some other weather pages before. This right here is what is called the CFS, otherwise known as the Climate Forecast System. And essentially what this does is it kind of combines all the model data about a month or two out and kind of gives you a general idea of what the conditions might be like in that time. Now, it doesn't tell you, the specifics of, oh my gosh, there's going to be a giant tornado outbreak on this date, et cetera, et cetera. No, that's not what this does. And so what a lot of social media pages have been doing is taking pictures like this, screen grabs of the long-range model data from the CFS, otherwise again known as the climate forecast system or the climate forecast model, and running with it and hyping it up more than they probably should. Essentially, all this graphic right now here is telling you is that between April 19th and 26th, that severe weather is going to be possible in the Great Plains. That's really all it tells you. And for those of you who have been around in the Great Plains for as long as I've been alive, I mean I've been here my entire life. You're gonna know that springtime it's storm season. This is nothing new. There's nothing too crazy about the fact that, we might get some storms in April and May. That's pretty typical every single year in the Great Plains, from Texas all the way through North Dakota. And it's interesting to, kind of pick this up because we've mentioned this in previous episodes. There's been a pretty, westward or eastward trend in terms of the storm season and where it kind of begins. So, for example, back in March, places like Mississippi, Alabama, the southern states had that pretty strong uptick in severe weather. Otherwise, that area is otherwise known as Dixie Alley, for those of you who haven't heard that before. And so what usually happens is earlier on in the storm season, in springtime, all of the storm ingredients are actually out in those general areas. But as the storm season goes on, it kind of shifts. So it goes from the southern states all the way back to eventually Texas and Oklahoma in the middle of the spring. And then as the springtime ends, likely late May and into June, we start to see some of those more high plains storm events. So things or places like North Dakota, South Dakota. So this just kind of more implements that trend of, the storm systems kind of tend to shift in terms of positioning as the springtime goes on. So this is nothing out of the ordinary. So if you were out there on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you may have been scrolling social media and came across a post like this saying, "Oh my gosh, storms are going to happen in late April." I mean, there's nothing out of the ordinary about this. And again, I want to kind of give some credit here. I took this image here from Reed Timmer's Facebook page because that was one of the places that I remembered seeing it. So shout out to Reed Timmer. He's a great meteorologist, extreme meteorologist. I wouldn't necessarily suggest doing some of the things that he does because sometimes if you don't have the proper equipment, it can be a little bit dangerous. But with that said, just kind of want to give some context to that image if you were seeing that being spread across social media from the last week. With that in mind, though, we are expecting an uptick in severe weather here in central Texas between now and the end of April, and that's exactly what we have in the forecast, especially as we head into Easter weekend. So let's go ahead and jump right on into that and kind of give you an idea of this week's forecast here locally in Central Texas, which is something that we are going to be talking about quite a bit in the coming days. So again, for those of you watching live on Facebook, this is probably going to be a little bit more relevant to you. Those of you who are watching the pre-recorded or the after recording, that will be posted on Degrees of Science YouTube channel. Depending on the time you're watching this, the information here will probably change a little bit. So that's why it's important to always keep up with your local meteorologist. Tune in to us on KWTX Channel 10 here during the weekdays and even on the weekends as well. So that's where we'll have the most pertinent information as time goes on. But for now, for those of you watching on Facebook Live, this is the most recent information. So let's go ahead and take a look here. This is the April 2025 high temperatures in the afternoon for all the way up to this point. Of course, today is April 16th. We haven't gotten the data in yet, considering this podcast is happening in the late morning hours, so it's about 11 o'clock for those of you watching live. And you can see up to this point, we've pretty much spent April right where we need to be in terms of those average highs. We have averaged a high so far of 77 degrees, putting us about a degree below normal. So the temperatures, not too much of a concern, although we did hit 90s, low 90s from this past Sunday, April 13th. That's only the fourth time that we've hit 90 degrees so far in 2025. So a bit of a slow start in terms of the heat, which is not a bad thing. Of course, many Central Texans know once the faucet turns off in the summertime, we get those triple-digit heat temperatures back in. It's going to be the dog days, that's for sure. But the thing that we've desperately needed is rainfall. Again, taking a look here all the way back to the beginning of April, we started with 3/4 of an inch, which wasn't a bad start to the month, but we have now seen 10 straight days of no rainfall in Central Texas, and we're likely going to add maybe another day or two to that total. Now, I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt here because I wish I had done a little bit more research on this. I had it in my notes, and I didn't wind up doing it. But this is something that's not quite as common in Central Texas in terms of this quiet stretch. I mean, I can't remember the last time that we saw nearly a 2-week stretch with no rainfall in the middle of April. And some of you may remember from last week's episode 7 of Weather Nerds, which again, if you want to go back and watch that on our Degrees of Science YouTube channel, feel free to do so. We talked a little bit about this last week as well, where this kind of seems to be maybe an every other year kind of thing, at least as of recent. Back in 2023 and then back in 2021, we had some pretty similar stretches. I think 2023 was like an 8-day stretch, something like that, of no rainfall. And then 2021 would have been probably about a similar one to this, about a week and a half or so. And even then, it was kind of broken up by maybe some trace amounts of rainfall. So even then, if you want to count that, it was probably more like another 2-week stretch of no rainfall. But here this year, it's a little bit different. We haven't had any trace amounts. It's just been bone dry and warm. So the rain is definitely something that we need. Now, we are likely going to get the rain. Again, we have 2.5 inches below normal so far in April 2025, with about a week or two left to go to make up that deficit. But you'll notice here, heading into Easter weekend, those storm chances start to pick up here in Central Texas. So, of course, the time of this podcast, of this live Facebook Live, this is the Day 4 and Day 5 outlooks heading into Saturday and Easter Sunday. Now, of course, those of you who may be watching the pre-recorded version on Degrees of Science, this is probably going to be outdated information. Again, check in with your local meteorologist, because if you're watching before Easter Sunday, this is probably going to have some more updated information. But as of right now, for those of you watching on Facebook Live, that possible chance for strong to severe thunderstorms on Saturday is actually looking a little bit more likely. It appears that Sunday's chance has actually shifted a little bit further to the east in East Texas and Louisiana, those general areas. So here on the First Alert Futurecast, for those of you who don't know, the Futurecast is essentially all the different models that we use to kind of help get a general idea of the timing. And of course, unfortunately, we are still too far out to get that high resolution model data, that model data that is a little bit more, crystal clear in terms of what might happen at what location, et cetera, et cetera. This is long-range model data that we're about to look at here. So what you'll notice is it just kind of broad brushes the colors. It doesn't really, pinpoint anything, but it gives you a general idea of the rain chances and the timing and location. Just a general idea, not a very specific one. So as we zoom out here, this is the European model, and it's all going to hinge on the timing and location of this cold front as it makes its way in Friday night and into Saturday morning. So Good Friday, most of the day will be spent a little bit cloudy. Those rain chances only up to about 10%. We could see maybe a stray shower or two try to enter our area from the northwest, but we'll likely spend most of the day dry and in the low 90s in Central Texas. But those storm chances start to pick up Friday night and into Saturday morning, as you can see there. So most of the day Saturday is likely when that storm coverage will really start to increase, especially as we head into the afternoon and evening hours. And then eventually early Easter Sunday morning. That's when we're likely going to see the biggest uptick in strong to severe thunderstorms, as you can see there. Long line being predicted by the European model. GFS model will likely show you something a little bit different. But you can see here the model is picking up on the late Friday into early Saturday, and eventually Saturday afternoon into early Sunday morning. Those showers will likely clear out by Easter Sunday afternoon. So for those of you who may have early morning plans on Easter Sunday, this will probably warrant your attention a little bit. The good news is right now we're not looking at anything that is signaling a potential severe weather outbreak by any means. This is likely going to be just a few scattered showers and thunderstorms as we head throughout the weekend. So it'll definitely warrant keeping an eye on. But for right now, the good news is that there's nothing super concerning in the model data as of this time. But of course, as we get closer to time, we'll probably get some more information in as to what the specifics may look like. So that's the general timing. Again, we're watching those storm chances heading into Easter weekend. How much rain are we going to see? Obviously, you all saw that we are seeing 10 straight days, likely going to be 11 to 12 straight days of no rainfall. Again, today and tomorrow are going to be mostly quiet. How much rain are we going to see? Well, here in Central Texas, likely going to be anywhere between about an inch or two between now and the end of Easter weekend. So those higher rainfall totals, according to this is actually the global forecast model, so the American model, it's actually picking up on, again, maybe about an inch to an inch and a half. So that might be enough to make a pretty solid dent in the forecast for the rain deficit that we've had. But the good news is these actually aren't the only rain or storm chances that we're tracking heading into the end of the weekend and beyond, actually. As you saw, we are expecting at least a little bit of an uptick between the end of April and maybe early May here in Central Texas and all throughout the Great Plains. And you'll notice as we look at the weather planner, those rain and storm chances are definitely highest right now on Easter weekend, and especially Saturday, as you saw with the outlook. But we actually have some extra rain chances there heading toward the middle to the end of next week. Now, the specifics of those storm chances, not very specific right now. We just have the kind of general idea. Again, we're still about a week or so away from seeing any of that come to fruition. But with that in mind, we could maybe see another extra inch or two of rainfall between now and the end of next week. So we could very easily, fingers crossed, make up that rain deficit that we have so far, at least as far as April 2025 is concerned. So that's good news there. Fingers crossed that happens, because especially as we head into the summer months, again, many Central Texans know, once that faucet shuts off, it gets hot and dry for quite some time. So we'll take all the rain we can get right now. So that's kind of what we're looking at in the forecast. That's pretty much all we have today in terms of today's podcast. So again, thank you all for tuning in on Facebook Live. I really appreciate it. Of course, our first alert meteorologist, Sean Billafury, for those of you watching on Facebook Live, will be live on Channel 10 at noon, and he'll have the latest updates there for you in terms of the forecast for the Easter weekend and heading into next week as well. But yeah, that's just about it. Thank you all so much for tuning in on this episode 8 of Weather Nerds. Again, I just want to show you one more time here before we go. You can kind of watch on the Degrees of Science YouTube channel. If you missed the Facebook Live, we post all of these there. You can see all of the previous recordings of Degrees of Science, podcasts, etc. And actually, there's that podcast tab there that you'll see me go over to, and that's where you can see basically a playlist of all of the episodes. And this, of course, this episode 8 will be uploaded there either later this afternoon or heading into tomorrow. I'm not quite sure yet. I'll have to figure that out. But so that's where you can find all the previous episodes of Weather Nerds if you missed out on those. But yeah, and actually, one more thing before we go. I'm already forgetting things before we wrap up here. What's been going on behind the scenes here at the First Alert Weather Team here at KWTX? Well, unfortunately, there's not much to report. But, of course, Chief Meteorologist Brady Taylor has been doing all of those Degrees of Science episodes. He actually pushed one out yesterday via our First Alert Weather app. So again, if you want to go check out those episodes on Degrees of Science, feel free to do so. In terms of myself, behind the scenes stuff, and actually this wasn't necessarily behind the scenes. This was actually aired out live over our newscasts last week. I actually went down to Belton to go do some live reporting on the weather, and I made some new friends down there while I was there. These guys are some sea lions that I ran into at the music festival from this past weekend. This was actually last Thursday, I believe, so about a week ago now already. But they were so cool. They were awesome. Had them there for the live shot. They were all up on me there, as you can see. Got a picture with one of them after the fact, and it was really, really cool to hang out with these guys. They were pretty cool. And let me tell you, it was really warm and hot that day, and it was fantastic to feel a very cold and wet sea lion lay on my shoulder after standing and sweating for about an hour outside. That day, I mean, it was sunny, and you'd be hard pressed to pick out a cloud in the sky. I mean, as you saw, it's been warm and dry for the last week and a half. So just wanted to show that off. That was a lot of fun getting to go out to Belton last week and see all the festivities they had there. They had even more stuff. They had a guy doing high jumps or high dives rather off of a giant tower while setting himself on fire. Like, that was peak entertainment right there. And of course, I think they even had Gabriel Iglesias, or otherwise known as Fluffy, out there for some stand-up comedy. They had All-American Rejects out there at the Expo Center. There was just loads of entertainment down there in Belton this past weekend, so it was a lot of fun to get to cover that. But anyway, I think that does it now. That's a little bit of what's been going on behind the scenes. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Hope to catch you all for episode 9 next week on Wednesday here on Facebook Live and on the Degrees of Science YouTube channel. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And I hope you all have a wonderful week ahead.